Late one night, as I was driving along a desolate stretch of road, my headlights caught sight of a young woman hitchhiking by the side. Against my better judgment, I pulled over and offered her a ride. She gratefully accepted, climbing into the back seat. As we drove, the atmosphere inside the car grew heavy. I tried to make conversation, but the young woman remained silent, her face obscured by shadows. Unease settled within me, and I stole glances at her through the rearview mirror. After a few minutes, she let out a soft sigh. Startled, I glanced back again, only to find that she'd vanished, leaving behind an empty back seat. In a state of shock, I pulled over, my heart pounding against my chest. I searched every nook and cranny of the car, but she was nowhere to be found. Shaken and bewildered, I continued my journey, convinced that I had encountered a ghostly apparition. It wasn't until years later, when I stumbled upon a local legend, that I discovered the truth. The hitchhiker I picked up was said to have died tragically on that very road, forever doomed to roam, searching for a way home. Since that night, I can't help but feel a chill in my spine whenever I pass that desolate stretch of road, forever haunted by the mysterious encounter with the phantom hitchhiker. It was a stormy night when a group of friends and I decided to experiment with a Ouija board. We had heard stories of its ability to communicate with the spirits beyond, and curiosity got the better of us. With candles flickering, we gathered around the board, ready to make contact. As we placed our fingers on the planchette, a strange energy seemed to fill the room. The planchette moved effortlessly, spelling out messages from an unknown entity. At first, we dismissed it as mere coincidence, the work of our own subconscious minds. But as the session continued, the messages grew darker and more menacing. Suddenly, the planchette moved on its own, forcefully dragging our fingertips along. The room grew colder, the air thick with an unsettling presence. Panic surged through our veins as the planchette spelled out a name we did not recognize. Terrified, I tried to end the session, but the planchette refused to let us leave. It darted across the board, spelling out ominous warnings and threats. The room burst into chaos as candles flickered erratically and objects flew off shelves. We felt trapped, surrounded by an invisible force. Desperate, we huddled together, chanting prayers and begging for the ordeal to end. Slowly, the chaos subsided, and as we cautiously opened our eyes, we realized the room was returned to its normal state. We vowed never to mess with the Ouija board again, haunted by the chilling memories of that fateful night. When I was a child, my grandmother gifted me a porcelain doll. It had an innocent cherubic face, with delicate ringlets falling down its back. But there was something unsettling about its glassy eyes that sent shivers down my spine. That night, I placed the doll on the shelf in my room, and as I drifted off to sleep, I began hearing faint giggling. My eyes shot open, my heart pounding relentlessly. I watched in terror as the doll turned its head towards me, the giggling growing louder. Unable to move, I watched as the doll hopped off the shelf and landed softly on the floor. It slowly made its way towards my bed, its eyes glowing with a sinister light. The doll's porcelain face twisted into a menacing grin as it whispered my name. Fear coursed through every fiber of my being, and I found my voice, screaming for help. My parents rushed into the room, only to find the doll motionless on the floor. They dismissed my claims, chalking it up to an overactive imagination. But as the years went by, strange occurrences plagued me. The doll would change positions overnight, sometimes even appearing at the foot of my bed. It filled my dreams with haunting visions, and the giggling never ceased. Eventually, I couldn't take it anymore, and I begged my parents to get rid of the doll. To this day, I can't rid myself of the sensation that the doll's presence still lingers, watching me from the dark corners of my room. Several friends and I rented a secluded cabin in the middle of a forest for a weekend getaway. The cabin was charming and surrounded by lush trees, but as darkness fell, an eerie presence settled over the area. On our first night, we gathered around the fireplace, sharing stories and laughter. But as the night progressed, we began to hear strange noises coming from outside. Rustling leaves, snaps of twigs, and whispers on the wind chilled us to the bone. Uneasiness consumed us, and we decided to investigate. Armed with flashlights, we ventured into the woods, our hearts pounding with fear. Suddenly, a figure darted past, disappearing among the trees. We screamed, our adrenaline surging. It felt as though an invisible force was closing in on us. Desperate to escape, we rushed back to the cabin, but the air grew heavy, almost suffocating. As we bolted through the cabin's entrance, I glanced back to see the cabin door slam shut on its own, trapping us inside with whatever haunted those menacing woods. For the remainder of that horrifying night, we were tormented by the sounds of scratching at the windows, whispering voices, and even the sight of shadowy figures lurking just beyond our line of sight. It felt like an eternity until the morning light finally broke, and we escaped the clutches of that forest cabin. I was an intern at a small hospital that had been abandoned for decades. One night, some of the other staff members dared me to spend the night alone inside the creepy building. With a mixture of curiosity and apprehension, I agreed. As I entered the dimly lit hospital, the oppressive silence gave me chills. Cold air seeped through the cracked windows, and the sound of my footsteps echoed through the empty hallways. I made my way to the old operating room, the sight of rusted surgical instruments sending shivers down my spine. Just as I was about to call it a night, I heard a distinct, eerie groan coming from one of the rooms. My heart raced as I slowly approached the source of the sound, my palms sweaty. To my horror, I discovered a ghostly figure lying on a decrepit hospital bed. Its face was gaunt, eyes hollow, and yet it seemed to be staring straight at me. Frozen in fear, I could only watch as the figure gradually rose from the bed, a menacing smile forming across its pale lips. It reached out towards me, whispering unintelligible words that turned my blood to ice. In a state of panic, I ran as fast as my trembling legs would carry me, making it out of the hospital just in time. Since that terrifying night, I've never been able to shake off the feeling of being watched, haunted by the presence of that ghostly patient in the abandoned hospital.